Caused consternation with my 10-year-old, who would read it on the way to school in the mornings. Some of the field guide information we use so often it's memorized. For example, the ABCs for patient care, airway, breathing, circulation, or sizing up a structure fire. Some of the information is esoteric but useful. With rattlesnake bites, it once advised to bring in the head of the rattlesnake so that the species could be identified, but with the caution that even just the head could envenomate. You can imagine that this might bring chaos to an emergency room. Fortunately, now we can just bring a picture. Better for us, the ER, and the snake. This field guide will not help you put out a fire. At least, not a real one. Rather, it is the guide I wish I'd had when I became a firefighter, or when I turned 18. In essence, it is a field guide for humans based on the experiences and stories of being a firefighter. The guide is divided into 5 parts. Part 1 describes the universe as firefighters see it, a little darker and filled with urgency. Part 2 is about staying calm and solving problems. Part 3 is about facing the dragons, the crises in our lives. Part 4 is about the time after tragedies. Part 5 introduces qualities and practices that can help us thrive. Like my wildfire guide, this guide can be read straight through, or you can read individual chapters based on your interests or needs. About that wildfire, there was a bit of chaos in the beginning. A lot of anxiety, wondering whether we had enough resources, and whether we could catch the fire before it got into dense forest. But once help arrived, we made a plan, everything settled down, and we got to the work of putting out the fire. It took us the majority of the morning to knock it down and extinguish it. We were lucky. Had a few more hours gone by without it being caught, we would have lost a lot of homes. In the end, I threw my field guide back into my messenger bag and headed home. That day, it was Fire Department 1, Wildfire 0. I'm reasonably sure our ancestors would have approved. Introduction. First call. What do we live for if it is not to make life less difficult to each other? George Eliot, Middlemarch. Early on a Tuesday evening in November 1986, my wife Lori and I became volunteer firefighters. After 6 months of training, we were voted into the Hondo Volunteer Fire Department and given permission to respond to calls. We went home, congratulated each other, had dinner, and began doing dishes. At about 9:30 p.m., we suddenly heard this horrendous high-pitched shriek. "Holy shit, what was that?" Lori yelled. We looked at each other and then noticed that both of our fire department pagers, which we would carry with us 24/7 for the next several decades, and which would largely run our lives, were vibrating on the kitchen counter. An unintelligible voice came over the radio. "Hondo, crackle crackle. Car fire, crackle crackle." "Wait," Lori exclaimed. "They're going to page us at night?" We momentarily put aside Lori's critical insight as we tried to remember what we were supposed to do. Completely adrenalized. A car on fire. I asked, "What should I wear? Who's going to drive? Where are the dogs?" We managed to settle down, get the dogs inside the house, and get ourselves out of it. We jumped into our old and cranky Nissan Pathfinder and headed toward our first call. This was our induction into the vocation, and, to Lori's dismay, the realization that, yes, they were going to page us at night. There would be many such nights, followed by countless exhausted mornings and coffee-laden hours at our day jobs. Yet, as soon as we opened the door that first night and headed toward the fire, we knew these physical inconveniences weren't going to matter. We were hooked. While a little concerned by the disruption we had invited into our lives, we were both thrilled and sobered by the understanding that our worldview was about to irrevocably change. Our story of joining a volunteer fire department is one shared all over the country. There are approximately 1.2 million firefighters in the United States. Of that number, 70% are volunteers. Of the 60 firefighter deaths in 2017, 32 were volunteers. Although major cities have paid firefighters, we call them career firefighters. Medium-sized cities, small towns, suburbs, and rural America are served by largely volunteer or combined.